there any interesting story to the statue behind you?
All right.
Her name is Naomi.
Naomi, okay.
Okay.
She's
Okay,
just
Eric,
my
I'll
friend.
take care of all the intro. I got
Okay,
right
I'll let you do,
Yeah.
I'll let you do the introduction.
Okay. We
Uh,
are.
Then since you'll be doing it and handling the QA, I'll just turn off my picture then.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we are now live. I am muting myself and the webinar is starting.
Okay. I'll watch the participants. Thanks.
You'll be doing.
Hi, Bob Glickman. Hi, Rob Palmer.
Rob could do my talk for me.
He's been a good friend of FACT, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, he's
Susan,
No,
just
Rob's.
while there's open time, not to take up Q&A time later, about how many people do you have among your, I probably should choose a better word than minions?
they're all over. So in the Wikipedia project, there's a little over 100 of them. You know, they're not all active. And then in the Guerrilla Skeptics project, there's probably 20. Some of them are not very active. But worldwide, if I need to put on a project, if I say, hey, you guys, let's do this thing, if it's online, I could probably pull hundreds of people who would be
Wow.
willing to do the thing, whatever it is. So it just depends on what I'm doing, and it's all levels of activity out there. So if I'm asking for a commitment for months, then it's harder. If I'm asking for some commitment to do some item for a day or two, I could probably get 1,000 people. It just depends, you know.
That's
It
great.
really depends on what you're doing and how you're doing
Right.
it, what you're asking for them to do. So minions, I'm looking for more people that want to actually do what I'm doing, and then that kind of stuff.
Right.
You mean doing
It
the
is-
editing and improving to Wikipedia?
It just depends. It completely depends on what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay, it's
Okay.
2 o'clock. So actually it's 2:01, so I'm going to get started. Welcome to the March meeting of the Philadelphia Association for Critical Thinking. FACT began, whoops, I just hit my keyboard, sorry. FACT began in 1995. We support science, reason, critical thinking, and the thorough investigation of claims using the scientific method. Please see our website, www.fact.org, to join FACT for $25 a year. We're going to get the meeting started very quickly. Some information on the Zoom meeting. There is a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. You can type your questions in at any time. They'll be read at the end of the meeting. Please make your questions brief and concise. And today we are so excited to have Susan Gerbic, who will talk about her activism during the lockdown. We are thrilled to have her. Little brief intro. Susan is a professional studio photographer who became interested in skepticism when she first read Skeptical Inquirer almost 30 years ago. And Susan, that's about when I've read my first issue too, and it's just such an eye-opener. She quickly became more active in skepticism, winning awards and running sting operations on people who claim to be mediums. I love that. In 2010, she founded Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia with an army of editors. So some of her awards: in the Trenches Award at the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry's Skeptical Toolbox Workshop, James Randi Award for Skepticism in the Public Interest at the Amazing Meeting in 2013, 2017 award from James Randi Educational Association shared with her team of Guerrilla Skeptics, appointed a fellow of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, February 2018, and in 2019, the Ballas, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Award for Critical Thinking at the Center for Inquiry. Susan, I hope I covered all your awards. I got all this information from Wikipedia. So if it's inaccurate, you know what to do. And the stage is yours today. Thank you so much for coming, Susan. Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am Susan Gerbic, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I'm thrilled to be able to be in Philadelphia. I really would like to come out and see you guys in person. That would be terrific. But alas, it's not happening right at the moment. So let me share my screen as one does these days over Zoom. We were just talking before we started that Zoom has just made a mint off of the pandemic. And if psychics had invested in Zoom beforehand, maybe they would have been they would have been able to do their thing a little bit differently. They'd be making millions right now. All right. So thumbs up, anybody, or somebody would give me a nice thumbs up to tell me that that you can see my screen. Oops, the wrong screen probably showing. Let me show you the better screen. You know, I've got multiple screens over here, so there's the one I want to show you from. Okay. There we are.
Yes, we can see it, Susan.
Okay, great. So this should just be the full screen. Yeah, there it is. It's popping up. Everything's got a little bit of a delay on here. All right. So what we're going to talk about today, which should run about 30, 40 minutes or so, is what we did during the pandemic. And when I say we, I mean me and multiple people who are out there in the community who have been looking to do more with their activism or want to become active. They want to turn from armchair skeptics into something that's a little bit more active, and you guys all know Rob Palmer. He's one of the people who had been listening to podcasts and who had been, watching things and lectures and stuff. And he wanted to get more involved, and he took it upon himself to kind of create this niche. And we need more people like that. We need to find those people. And that's what I want to do. We've had so many very sad deaths lately. Harriet Hall, and of course, James Randi and Ken Frazier and so on. And then we've had a lot of people who've kind of fallen off that had been really active and then they haven't been active. And we need to find those new people who can take over and not necessarily take their shoes and walk in them, but to find their own way, because we're not going to get out of this mess we're in unless we start finding some people who are able to help us out and make their way. We're in a mess right now, and I think that a lot of the reason why we're in the mess we're in, misinformation wise, is because a lot of the skeptic community, the science community, didn't take it seriously. We thought it was all a joke, like the Flat Earth Society and so on. We didn't really think of it as, serious. But then when the pandemic started, we started saying, oh, this is probably not a good thing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kind of break it down into some different categories. The first I'm going to start off with is the guerrilla skeptic category, which is the psychic area. I find the psychics, and I'm talking about mediumship, people who claim to be able to communicate with the dead. I find that is fascinating. It's just such an interesting, it's an interesting kind of way that it's been around for a very long time. It's been debunked for a very long time, but yet we keep having generation after generation falling for it because I don't think they're well educated in this area. They're not really comfortable learning about the scams. They want a quick fix. What is going on? Tell me yes or no. Are psychics real? That kind of thing. So I'm going to start off with that, and then I'm going to move on to Wikipedia, and then I'll go on to some other different areas. So during the pandemic, my team, like I say, is all over the place. They're in different areas, different groups. Some people are there for a small period of time. Some people are around for a much longer period of time. It just depends. One of the first things we did is we wanted to see if any psychics had actually predicted the pandemic, because you would think that is kind of a big deal, right? It's, millions of people are dead. Tens of millions of people are affected, if not hundreds of millions of people are affected by the pandemic, and small ways and big ways. We were talking about Zoom making so much money on it. You would think they would have gotten all these controls taken care of and done better marketing and so on. if they'd known that if they had a psychic on that they were consulting, maybe Skype would have gotten and said, oh, we're going to take the market, or no, maybe Microsoft Teams would have been the one thing, but no, nobody was paying attention and was aware that we were going to be coming into this mess. So I write for Skeptical Inquirer magazine, and mainly online. And I have a column called Guerrilla Skepticism. And one of the things we did is we went to all the social media of all the different psychics, because we wanted everybody we could find all over the world, because what we were trying to do is see if we could find anybody who had said, there's going to be a giant disruption in the world. I don't think it's a good idea to plan my vacation at this time. Or like you say, maybe trying to invest in something that would show that possibly this would be a good money maker. Some of the different corporations, Pfizer, Moderna, investing in those. Did we see anybody canceling their events, saying, I'm not going to be speaking at this time because there's going to be a great disruption in the world? No, we wanted to see what we thought would happen, but we went through and we screen shared everything, made screen captures of everything we could possibly find on all the psychics we could find that were the general normal psychics that you would think of. And here's some of the things we found. Like this is Thomas John. He's a seatbelt psychic. I spent a lot of time on seatbelt psychic phenomena, because right now he's really doing really well. His videos are now over on TikTok, the shortened ones, and there's a whole generation of people out there, mostly women, mostly under the age of probably 24, and they're finding these videos and they're saying, what the heck, this is amazing. And they're not aware of the tricks of the trade. They don't understand all this kind of stuff. But anyway, here's Thomas John. He was at Caesar's Palace right before the pandemic. He started, I think, in January, and he was really hyping his show. Get your tickets, get your tickets, get your tickets. Look, Ticketmaster is now going to has the tickets available up until July. Well, we all know that he wasn't able to continue because everything was closed down. But why was he hyping all these tickets? Well, because he didn't know, because he's not psychic. But you hear, this is just more evidence. It's showing how he was trying to sell the tickets and they're all canceled. So when people ask me what you can do, keep in mind that there's a lot of things out there that people can do. And this is something that I and my team did, is we went just screen sharing, copying everything. Here's Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. She's closer to you guys out there than in Philadelphia than here with me in California. But she had to cancel her event. Now, why would she cancel her event? Didn't she know that it was not going to happen? I think in Teresa Caputo's case, even she canceled and then rescheduled and then had to cancel that reschedule. And it's odd how so many of these psychics didn't seem to know that, when it was going to be over. Many of their websites would say, well, when it's safe to get back together again, we'll reschedule. And I thought, well, don't you know when it's going to be safe to get back together again? I mean, I don't expect them to be able to know that it was going to be called COVID-19 and it was going to be the specific stuff, but they should have at least known some of this, because what good are psychics if they could tell you that grandma's in the garden with her hat on and there's somebody's throwing pennies in your direction, and at the end, my legs didn't work really well. This is the kind of stuff that they tell you. But what good is that information if they can't tell you about a worldwide pandemic, right? Here's John Edward, one of the more celebrated mediums. He's been around like 40 years or more doing this alphabet game that he does. And he goes to Australia a couple times a year. And here is what it looks like. Not only was all his events canceled, but he was canceled. In fact, everybody was canceled. Australia and New Zealand were closed to just about everybody. So, it makes you think, why would you schedule this event? Wouldn't you feel some huge disturbance in the force, or whatever it is that they say that they have, the energy. So another thing I did during the pandemic is we kind of tied up a lot of loose ends. And this was a project that Richard Saunders in Australia, he has a podcast called the Skeptic Zone. One of the things that he had been struggling with for, oh my gosh, like 19 years, was he was trying to collect all the predictions of all the psychics in Australia that were made like on YouTube or in women's magazines. Yes, it's almost all women's magazines, in newspapers and so on. He was collecting all these different items, and he was trying to evaluate the psychic's predictions, but it was a difficult, time-consuming task. And every year he added another year on it because he wasn't getting through it. He wasn't getting the help to evaluate it. It's much more difficult than you think to evaluate a psychic's claim. And I believe Rob Palmer has given a talk here on the Philadelphia Skeptics group, because there's a lot of nuances to it. It's a really interesting look at the phenomena of psychics and how to evaluate. And I think that the skeptic community didn't quite understand how detailed this would be. And so I think it took 21 years. But during the pandemic, what I did is, Richard Saunders is a friend of mine, and he asked, can you help? Maybe how can we coordinate this? How can we come together and get me out of this 20-year misery of evaluating these psychic claims and be done with it? And this is the most definitive ever done look at psychics in this way. And it was brilliant. And we spent, oh gosh, 2 years, something like that, with a bunch of manpower. And if you can find the videos on this, and there's a lot of different articles, a lot of different videos on this out there, please check it out. It's a fascinating look. I don't think we ever need to do anything like this ever again. Goodness gracious, it was incredibly difficult. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. This is another thing that we did during the pandemic, is because the psychics went to Zoom, my team of guerrilla skeptics went to Zoom. And you're looking at a picture of all these distorted faces. And it's because I don't really want to show you what these people, their personal faces and their personal names, because we don't want to have that out there. But we would go to these Zoom events, and they would be $20, $60 or so. And my team would go, we turn off our monitors, so you couldn't turn off our screens, change our names. So we were just incognito. And this is kind of what we found. I mean, their faces weren't distorted or anything like that, but it was almost 100% women. It was screen after screen after screen. And these are very lonely, desperate, vulnerable people, women. The psychic business is a crime against women. And as you see these people, the Hollywood and makes you feel like the psychic business is either just a joke, it's just an entertainment, or it makes you feel like it's just no big deal, or it's women. So women, shouldn't you just know? I mean, shouldn't you all know? It's a blame the victim kind of thing. And if they're gonna fall for this, well, so be it, whatever. So you're out $100 or whatever. But what we see when we visit these events, and I think skeptics should definitely attend more events. If you have something coming up in your area, a Bigfoot conference, a UFO conference, one of those fairs that has like all the different booths all over, you should attend. We should be aware of what's going on, what's being said. We have to educate ourselves before we're better able to educate people outside of our community. And as I said, it's generational. So there's a large groups of people who are just coming up in the world, where they're finding the media, they're finding the news, they're finding this world, and you think they're sophisticated, but they're really not. They don't know the tricks, and they're just as easy to fall for multi-level marketing scams or romance scams or psychics as anybody, because they're just not experienced. Whereas you get somebody in their 50s and 60s, we've had a little life experience. But in this case, these women going through the pandemic, they didn't understand how vulnerable they actually were. It doesn't, not everybody can fall for these kind of scams. There's, you know, all different kinds of scams out there, buying something on the internet and it looks great and it's not great, or falling for maybe electrical, you know, companies coming in and saying that electric company will save you money if you just change to this, or there's so much out there happening. Okay, sorry, going back to these women again. What we found when we were going to these events is the grief was real with these people. They're desperate, they're lonely, they're isolated, especially during the pandemic. We didn't know what was going on. Remember back to the beginning of the pandemic and how frightening it was. My boyfriend, Mark Edward, and I, we were watching the news, you know, probably 5 or 6 hours a day, trying to figure out what was going on. We're doom scrolling in our phones. And everybody had a different take on what was going on with this pandemic thing. We didn't know. We were, you know, should you touch your mail? Should you go to the grocery store and wash everything after you're done, you know, whenever you buy it? Can you talk to your neighbor on the street? You know, I mean, it was just so scary. And people turn to psychics because it's an easy answer. These women are grieving. I mean, my gosh, if you look at the chat conversations with them, they're crying out to the psychic, please, can you get a hold of my mother? Please, please, please. My father, I don't know what's going on with him or my child. And they're crying and it's awful. It's huge amounts of emotion. It's not entertaining at all. It's just a raw, awful look at what's going on in people's private lives and how awful it is for them. So anyway, but these are adults. These are adult women. They can do as they please. It's their money. So what ends up happening is Thomas John, the same person that I was talking about earlier at Caesars, he decides he's going to put on a spirit circle, which is 8 people. He does these 8 people person things. They're very expensive. It's $400 to get a ticket to go, 8 persons. And he was going to aim it at children. So now that's just a whole new area. These are from 5 to 12 years old. They had to have a guardian with them, but he was kind of talking about it in a way that these children could be mediums themselves. This is talk about grooming. And the parents were all in it. Well, I should say the mothers were all in it. Because again, it was all moms that wanted to get a reading from Thomas John. They're willing to pay $400 and they're willing to put their kid in it. And to make it sound like their child was, you know, seeing shadow people, ghosts under the bed, dreams about people. And they loved it. They thought it was great. So, you know, we had attended a lot of different events, but this one was just kind of really, you know, you think at some point I've seen everything, but children, right? I tried to get this canceled. My team and I put our best pointed hats on, and we tried to figure out how we're going to get this canceled. But this is right after the riots and the insurrection in the Capitol building. So this was at a point where the world was already concentrating on something else. And we tried to get it shut down, and we didn't get a lot of people who would listen to us to help. We couldn't find any media that was really going to help us out. We thought we could shame them. We thought we could get, maybe the company was taking the money to shut it down. We thought, you know, we thought we could get this canceled. I mean, how egregious to be doing this to children. One of the problems is that this is virtual. And if he was appearing in a location, you know, if he was in Philadelphia and he's going to be at this location doing this, we'd have a better chance of getting it shut down, because you can shame the place he's having it at. You know, you can say, why are you letting this grief vampire into your rooms? You're renting it to this guy. Do you understand what he's doing? I mean, this has been successful around the world in some places who are platforming anti-vaxxers. They were able to get some of the places shut down. They're able to say, you know, we're going to show up and protest if you have this person here. And they were like, oh, okay, we're going to shut it down in some cases. Or the local media would go in and say, oh, look what's happening at this facility next week. And they could kind of get it shut down, or they could get him shamed, or they could get, you know, attention, media attention, because people would be protesting. But when it's virtual like this, there's really not much you can do. So I reached out to some of the more famous bloggers in our community, and I said, could you please write about this? And Stephen Novella, who writes for Science-Based Medicine, he has a very popular podcast called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. He said, sure, Susan, I'll try to do something. And he wrote up this article, appeared February 3rd, 2021 in Science-Based Medicine. And it was from his opinion of being a neurologist at Yale. He's got a PhD, he's got a doctor in front of him. I thought, an MD, I mean, I thought this should cause people to care enough that somebody out there in our community or the science community would be able to get this virtual spirit circle for children shut down. Because I didn't feel it was valuable. I didn't feel it was helpful. We need to be able to say to somebody like Thomas John, look, dude, go ahead and victimize the women. They're adults at least, but not the kids. This is just too far. So Stephen Novella wrote up this really great article. You can find it. There's the name, and you can also find it on my website. But a quick Google should find that for you. And he basically says that, speaking as a medical doctor, probably not a good idea to tell impressionable children that you can communicate with the dead and that they possibly are communicating with the dead themselves. It's probably not good for young brains to have this happen to them. And people in the comments were, you know, upset. And then, as it happens in our community, people started talking about some other topic, and then they went off on some other area, and they didn't focus on the whole idea, which is, how can we get this canceled? So it went nowhere. In fact, Thomas John saw this article and he just ridiculed it. And he said, kids are spiritual people also. I've got the video up on my channel. He's just like, Stephen Novella is just some guy. Who cares what his opinion is? So what ends up happening is in my frustration, we figured we're going to have to attend, because what else are you going to be able to do, right? There's no way of combating this. So we need to know what's going on. So we're going to attend this. We're going to see what's happening ourselves. And we did. We attended the event. It's really a long story, and I'm not going to be able to tell it to you here. I've done lectures on it, and I've talked about it, and I have all the video. It's pretty phenomenal what we were able to do, and with about 3-4 days notice. And I've written about it here in this article for Skeptical Inquirer. It's called Operation Onion Ring. My boyfriend, Mark Edward, comes up with all these names, so you can talk to him about why he comes up with the names that he does. But we want them to be memorable. We want them to be Googleable. We want them to be something that can be spelled easily. We want that if somebody just happens to overhear something about a sting called Operation Onion Ring, they don't have to write that down. It's not fancy. And then maybe if they're waiting in line somewhere, they could just pull up their phone and type Operation Onion Ring. What was that? And they'll get the story, and they'll be able to figure out what was going on. That's kind of what the motivation is partly behind it. So it's a long article. You can find it here. You can see how I've got it linked in the, just type that in. You shouldn't have any problem finding it in Skeptical Inquirer. And it gives you the details of how we stung this guy. And we really did sting him. So one of the other things that I was able to do is, and this is kind of later, I just did this in the last couple of weeks, concerning psychics. It's dawned to me that the skeptic community isn't really educated on what happens with psychics. Because when you talk to people who think that they know what they're talking about in the skeptic world, as they say, oh yeah, well, there's these people, they just throw out whatever, and they call out like do you have a J name or an M name? And yeah, that does happen, but there's so much more to it that happens. In fact, there's so many nuances of the psychic world, the psychic business, the mediumship business. It's changed over time. Each of these psychics have their own nuance of how they approach it. It's eloquent in its ways. It's interesting. It's the phenomenon of psychic mediumship is so interesting. So I decided I would come up with this channel. A friend of mine talked me into doing it. Actually seriously devoting a YouTube channel to it. And I've had it about 9 days, and I'm calling it Psychics Explained. And I'm taking different videos and I'm breaking it down and talking or audio or videos. And I'm breaking it down and I'm saying, did you hear what he just said? He used this word this way. That's intentional. It means this. This is what he's trying to do. For example, and I give a lot of examples. For example, what a psychic medium like John Edward will say, there's something about a child. Okay, well, that seems to you to mean a certain age, right? You're thinking of a child. But what it's actually doing is the word is intentional, because child can mean anything. We're all children, aren't we? We're all a child of somebody. So he doesn't say boy, girl. He doesn't say infant. He doesn't say teenager. He doesn't say preteen. He doesn't say adult child. He doesn't say any of that, because it just leaves it open. And is it a live child? Is it a dead child? I'm getting something about a child. And then the person who's the sitter, who's extremely motivated to want to hook on this reading they're getting, will say, you must be talking about my sister, because she died in her 50s, but my mom, she was the child of my mom, so it encompasses anything. And these words like that, as I said, are intentional. And the parent, or I mean, the psychic has learned this. So anyway, on my channel, Psychics Explained, I'm learning about YouTubing. I've had a YouTube channel forever, since 2009, but I'm learning about this specific type of becoming a YouTube, with a direct focus, with the intent to actually educate a new generation, because I'm finding the people who are coming to my channel are people in their under 40, almost entirely women, and how to educate not only the skeptic community who's lacking in these skills, but also people who are just coming in going, I was looking for one of Thomas John's videos and I got one of yours, and whoa, I didn't realize that was going on. I had no idea. Some of them tell me, I thought something was going on, but I didn't quite understand what was going on. Thank you for helping me out with that. And then people are telling me things that they saw that I didn't see. So it's really interesting. I put this video up yesterday, and I'll give you an example, because I know lots of people like examples. I put this up yesterday. I'm using all this weird font and these things, because this is what the other YouTube channels do that are really popular, is they have things, jumping out at you, and they have silly stuff happening and bright colors. And it's just not my style, but I'm trying to get into it. It's kind of like my inner child, using crayons and stuff. And yes, I know his face doesn't fit on that body, but I think it's funny. And, anyway, so this one yesterday, I'd written this article for Skeptical Inquirer quite some time ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago. We're right at the beginning of the pandemic. And he's using, we watched some of Thomas John's videos, and on the video, he clicks off just briefly and his Google screen comes down, and you could see in the box all the things that he's been searching for on Google. And some of them are obituaries for people who he's probably had readings for. And you're like, this pops on the screen for a whole second. And one of my team members was watching the video and saw that happen and said, wait, what was that? And he went back and he screenshot it, and you can see it. So again, like I'm saying, there's so much work out there to be done just watching these people's videos, and not just the psychics, but all of this nonsense, these people who perpetuate this nonsense. They're watching their videos, and sometimes you have to watch many hours of it to understand the style of this one person, because these psychics and all the other con people, they can't handle any sunshine on them. And once you kind of catch on to how they're doing it, some ways there's of getting that out there. Anyway, so I put this video out yesterday, and I thought I'd share it with you. That I'm not going to share the video. It's on my channel. It's like 8-9 minutes long, but I'm showing the video of him, doing his thing. And then all of a sudden, for 1 second, this drop down menu comes in, and then I go and I show you the screen, and I show you the phrases of him looking for obituaries for people. Now, why would a psychic be looking for obituaries for random people? They're not his family members. They're people, in Iowa or Minnesota or wherever. And it just has to make you think that he's researching people. Here's the evidence he's researching people. It's really fascinating. Anyway, so I wrote the article up for Skeptical Inquirer, but now I have to turn it into this new medium, which is YouTube, because where else are we going to go with this? All right, so I'm going to stop talking about psychics for a moment. Psychics are my favorite kind of thing, but we're going to turn channel to something completely different, because this is all about herding cats. You guys out there are my cats. They're all cats out there wandering around. Some people just want to sleep in the chair all day, like my cats. Some want to find a nice piece of sunlight. And some people are actually like, I really want to do something, but I don't know what to do. That was me for a very long time. What should I do? So again, I keep putting up my screen up here that has the abouttimeproject.org, which is our website, that we are a nonprofit, and we are, we have a lot of different projects on there. So check it out. So let's turn to one of the things I'm more known for. Well, some people know me as the woman who does the things with the psychics and have no clue that I'm doing something with Wikipedia. And then I have another world of people who are like, oh my gosh, she's doing this Wikipedia project, and they have no idea I'm doing the psychic thing. It's pretty funny. It's all kind of tied together. So I run a Wikipedia group. It is one of the only off Wikipedia groups that is working on Wikipedia pages. We are very unique. I don't think there's anybody doing what we do. The way we're unique is that we have our own training. I wrote it. It's been embellished and improved for probably since we started, which is about 10, 11, 12 years now. And our training is really, really good. It's intense. It takes about 4 months, and it happens over Google Documents and Facebook. So that's another thing that's unique about us, is we use Facebook in order to communicate with the other team members. There's about 100 of us. We're located all over the world. We're in places where people normally don't have skeptic events or anything like that. So, this allows people to be able to participate from their home in their own leisure time. And you're going to be able to affect Wikipedia pages and educate people, literally educate people in ways that you wouldn't be able to do if you were on social media arguing with people. I think that's just such a waste of time. Please don't argue with people online. You're not educating anybody. They're wasting your time. And those 2 or 3 people that you think you're educating are not would probably benefit from other areas. So there's debunking, which has some kind of connotation of not a good thing. And there's educating people. And I think Wikipedia is a great place for not necessarily debunking, but when people are starting to question, they can go to Wikipedia, or they do a Google search and they're going to end up on Wikipedia, and they're going to get their question answered. And they're probably not going to fall into that rabbit hole of misinformation. because they were allowed to save face and they were allowed to find the information themselves. So people who are just believers in something, I mean, like, I believe the earth is a flat, or I believe the earth is hollow with this giant dome over it, they're not likely to learn anything from Wikipedia. So let's just take that off the table right there. Wikipedia is not going to change minds. What Wikipedia is going to do is it's going to help people who are starting to question, or it's going to inoculate you. That's the term I use. At SciCon this last year, the phrase was debunking. It's going to help out people who are not quite yet in the rabbit hole, or, like I say, inoculate them. So if you were to explain to your teenagers in your life about multi-level marketing schemes, for example, and you explained pyramid schemes, and you did it in a way that's general enough that as they encounter that somewhere in their life, they'll say to themselves, oh, that's right. Oh, Uncle Fred was kind of telling me about this a bunch of years ago. I think it's that thing where you throw money in and it feels like, so they understand enough. That's inoculating them. It's giving them a little bit of the information so that whenever they encounter it again, they're able to make connections, and they can go to Wikipedia and they can find out more information about it if they're so inclined, or if they need to be able to explain it to somebody else. So Wikipedia has a lot of benefits, but it's not going to convince anybody who's already, you can't argue with them. They're not going to see the light. But other people, it's great for, and that's the majority of people. Wikipedia is the place to go to. So my group, not only does it focus on Wikipedia pages that are pseudoscience related, we focus on anything that has to do with science completely, people of science, products of science, pseudoscience, all of that area. I mean, from dogs, the butterflies, to anti-vaxxers, to everything. We do the training. It happens over Facebook, as I said, and we do this in all languages possible. 45% of the work we do is in a language outside of English, because pseudoscience does not end at the borders of English, right? That's another problem in our skeptic communities. We tend to focus on English, and it is not just an English problem. So I'm going to use one example, and we did a lot of work during the pandemic on vaccines. We thought this might become a big deal. So this is, some of you people may recognize, this is RFK Jr. This is Robert Kennedy Jr. Now he's got that Kennedy name. So everybody's like, oh, it's a Kennedy. He must be smart. He must be amazing. He's very charismatic. So what Robert Kennedy has done is he's kind of the guy who's the forefront of the anti-vax community. And he's one of these people who says, I'm just asking questions. I don't really know. Why won't people answer our questions, and so on. So he has a group called Children's Health Defense, and that sounds pretty innocuous. Who's not for children and health and defending them and all that? But it's actually an anti-vax group. So I'm going to show you, this is from his website. And here's the Wikipedia page that one of my team members had written. Now, please don't read all this. This is very small print. You can go look at it later. But what is on here is we've managed to get in the lead, which is the very top part of the Wikipedia page, and the part most people don't read. I mean, only read, and that's as far as they get. We've tried to make sure we've got some really good information in there, and it's intentional the way our team writes this. So you can see it says that the Children's Health Defense is a nonprofit activist group mainly known for its anti-vaccine propaganda, and it's been identified as one of the main sources of misinformation on vaccines. That's important that it's in there just like that. So that is intentional. Also, you'll see the sidebar, and this is something that is a GSOW, my Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia team. This is intentional because people are visual. So we wanted to have in here to make sure that all these pages that are associated with pseudoscience have the sidebar on there. And you can see it has a little person and they look all new agey and everything. They're glowing from their aura. It's a part of series on alternative medicine. So if somebody glances at the Children's Health Defense Wikipedia page, they're going to get out of it, oh, this is anti-vaccine. Ooh, and it's alternative medicine. Okay, I'm moving on. I'm not going to contribute to their cause, or I'm not going to allow him into my venue to do a talk or whatever. They can just move on very quickly. So this is intentional. We've written 113 pages on vaccines. This again is the page that I just showed you. And you can see I've highlighted it now. Censorship is hiding us from you. And this is his website. This is the pop-up thing that appears when you go to their website. And then on their website, you can see this little blurb they have. And I'll just read this a little bit. Google, Wikipedia, and other tech companies falsely accuse Mr. Kennedy and the Children's Health Defense of spreading misinformation about vaccines and other urgent health matters. Wikipedia refuses to correct their inaccurate entries, despite our numerous attempts to provide them with the truth. And that's because there's Wikipedians out there, not just my team. My team is a little tiny little thing compared to the world of Wikipedia. And most Wikipedia editors are critical thinkers, scientific skeptics, whether they identify as it or not. They are factual people who insist on citations, and they absolutely, like my team, believe in Wikipedia, and free information is a great thing to be able to inform without having to go through paywalls, without having to have subscriptions and pop-ups and ads. This is important work. And everybody goes there, more or less. So the Children's Health Defense, this is a graph. This is called, that I use. It's called Stat Badger. It's only for GSOW editors. We're the only ones who can see this. Our friend, Kyle Polish from the Data Skeptic podcast designed this for us so that we can look at the history of the Wikipedia pages we have worked on. And we only keep track of pages that we've written completely or have rebuilt from a little stub to this massive page. We don't have anything to do. We can't possibly track all the edits we make. That would just be insane. There's just no way we could do that. So this Stat Badger tool that we have is telling you how many views have been on a Wikipedia page. We do not know if it's a unique user who's looking at the Wikipedia page, and we don't know how much time is spent on a Wikipedia page. The only way we have of looking at how we our success or our lack of success in the project we're in is how many times somebody has viewed it, how many times has it been clicked on. And you can see that there it's you know, during the pandemic times, 2021, 2022, they spiked. They went way up in their views to people wanting to know, what is this Children's Health Defense, right? And there's one day, it looks like one day back in April that it spiked 5,500 page views or more. So this is just a way of evaluating it. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, you can see this is March 10th, 2019. That's the day we made it live. So do we have any effect? Are people looking at these Wikipedia pages? Is this important? Well, we have, since last night, since we made this page live, 436,969 page views. That's a lot of eyeballs, right? You can't buy that. Well, I guess you could buy those views, but it's a lot of views for one of my editors who's worked on this Wikipedia page for, 8 hours or something is how long it took him to build this page, put it out there. It was all free on our end. We aren't paid to be able to make this. And so it's much more powerful than arguing with somebody on the internet. It's much more powerful than starting a blog or a website even. Wikipedia is the ultimate place to educate. That's the way I look at it. And I'm going to give you one more example. This is America's Frontline Doctors. You might have remembered that this was a nutty group of people who possibly have their medical degrees, but probably shouldn't have their medical degrees. And they were at the steps of the Capitol on January 5th. I believe they were doing their talk about demons and that COVID, you guys, I don't know. It could have been space aliens. It was just, people fall for this, they believe it, right? So this is America's Frontline Doctors. From this, there's all this misinformation that's being propagated. If you follow any of these, like the Herman Cain Awards or the antivaxxer.com sites, they show screenshots of what people who are anti-vaxxers are sharing. And they share a lot of the information from the frontline doctors and they over social media. It's just, so America's Frontline Doctors is another page we created. And as of last night, when I made this screenshot, we have 437,821 people or eyeballs, not necessarily individuals, are looking at the page to say, what the heck is America's Frontline Doctors? And so we have some eyeballs there. Okay, now we've written 113 Wikipedia pages that I've tagged vaccine related. 45% of that is in languages outside of English. That's not even close to where we should be. Obviously you would think 113, there's probably 1,013 pages you could be writing, but I only have so many people. We're all volunteers, nobody's paid. But the 113 Wikipedia pages have received 6,428,902 views. So we're making a difference. And you can see the stats there. Now my team, and I forgot to look this up before I got over here. Let me look really quick. We write on pages on Scientology. We write about atheism. We write about astronomy. We write about books that are related to the science or the scientific skepticism community or the paranormal community. We write about people. We write about UFOs. I love writing about UFOs. That's some of my favorite. We write about cryptids, all kinds of fun stuff. So we've got a lot of pages that we've written. We've written pages for people who have Nobel degrees, awards that receive the Nobels. We've written about people all over the country, places that you've never even heard of before. People you definitely have not heard of before, but once you read their story, you say, wow, this is an amazing human being. How come now I've never heard of this person? So we have written, now remember, this is only pages we have completely written or taken a stub that was awful and turned it into something really amazing. We don't keep track of all the pages we've just touched. Right now, as of this moment, we're at 2,149. Keep in mind, that's pages that are 45% is languages outside of English. So of those 2,149 pages, we're at 134 million page views. That's a lot. In fact, that was when I made this screenshot last night. I looked at it again this morning and we've already picked up 150,000 views from last night to this morning. So that's a lot of educating we're doing, and it's a lot of influence, and it's pissing off people like Robert Kennedy Jr. And nothing can make me happier than pissing off Robert Kennedy Jr. I'm nobody. I'm just somebody that has stepped forward and said, okay, I'll try to put together a project. I can't compete with a Kennedy. I mean, that's just insane. But in a way, I am competing with the Kennedys. I'm competing against this nonsense, and I'm finding people within our community who are willing to take the risks. Now, as I get closer to ending this, I hope you are putting your questions in the chat, because I'd love to be able to see you guys, because it's really strange speaking to my desktop and not hearing anything.
There are a lot of questions piling up, Susan.
All right, keep it going, you guys. I'll make up something for you guys. So as I get towards the end of this, you guys probably remember after we elected, or we got this new president, and everybody said, oh geez, we really aren't taking good, we weren't paying attention, right? A lot of people didn't come out to vote, and we had a mess. And people said, let's march for science. Let's go out in the streets with our signs and our and our slogans and our t-shirts, and we'll march for science. And so I did a whole lecture series for about a year. I went to New Zealand, I went to Australia, I went to the UK, and I talked about the March for Science effort. And I feel it was a failed effort because it was like a slacktivism where people feel like they're doing something, but really there wasn't an end game. And it didn't get us anywhere. It was like hitting like on a video or something. It wasn't really, we didn't channel it well. We didn't have any leadership. We didn't have an end game. We just got out in the streets and said, yeah, I'm a science fan too, and you are too. That's nice. And it really went nowhere. And what I was saying in the tour I did the year after this is that we don't have a plan. What are we going to do next? And unless we have some kind of goal, measurable goal, how can you go forward? And I think part of the way of doing that is we need to kind of find more people out there like yourselves who can contribute more and do more. There's ways of doing that. I put out this slide because this is a book of 105 practical ways you can promote science and scientific skepticism. Is written by or edited by Daniel Loxton. This is from 2007, and it is a little dated, but I don't think we can outdo it. It's as good as it's going to get. It's got a lot of great ideas in it, and I have it on my website if you want to go to the link, but you can just put that in there and you can find that book if you want some ideas. I also want to highlight another group that I have my fingers on. It's the facilitatedcommunication.org project. This is another piece of pseudoscience out there that is trying its best to get this nonsense, this just, oh, it's just awful out of the university. It's still being taught. It's still being paid for with state money. You might want to check out the facilitatedcommunication.org website. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. This is my friend Wendy Hughes. I absolutely adore her. I talked her into writing an article for Skeptical Inquirer in last fall. It appeared in October. She had fallen for a romance scam. And if you think romance scams are for people who are unintelligent or, you know, old people who don't know how to handle technology, I have news for you. That is not true. In fact, Wendy, during her investigation after she had fallen for the scam, realized that a lot of very young people are falling for romance scams. And it doesn't have to be a romance scam. It could be all kinds of sweetheart scams or multi-level marketing scams or cryptocurrency scams. There's tons out there. So she was able to write this article. She put her face to it, and she was willing to say, this was embarrassing. I did something really stupid, and here I am to tell you about it. So if you want to check out this article, it's a genuine, wonderful article written by a person in our community who fell for something and was okay at putting her face on it. And we find this in the psychic world all the time. People are constantly coming to me and saying, I fell for this. I fell for this. I fell for this. But I say, can I do an article with you? Are you willing to put your name out there? Are you willing to put your face out there? Oh, absolutely not. I'll lose my job. My family will ridicule me. I can't do that. So people aren't willing to come forward, which helps perpetuate the scams. A friend of mine, Lauren Pancras, he's just brilliant, but he's more of a historian. He's written a book called Modern Swindles. Well, he didn't write it. He had it translated from German. And it is a really wonderful illustrated book that it shows you that all the scams that we're seeing now, oh, they were doing them in the 1800s, in the early 1900s. They're just renamed and they've just changed some things on it. So all that was old is new again. So knowing our history, knowing how these things were done is a real helpful way of us learning from the mistakes and how to fix them. I want to also suggest that one of the things you can do is you can start attending like the lecture you're at today, or if you're watching this on YouTube, hi people on YouTube, that's helpful. Sharing these videos engaging with the talk, engaging with the videos, sharing it to other people, helping people get talks, you know, like you watch a talk on YouTube and you say, or on like here you are today, you say, that was really interesting. I wonder if the such and such community that I'm also involved in would welcome a talk by them and help them find their talks. I mean, I'm willing to talk to anybody, but school groups, which I've done, but other people as well, not just me, but other people you find too. Try to get the talks out there, try to get their word out there, share their channels, share their articles. That really helps. But we're speaking to the choir right now. A lot of you are obviously skeptics, but sometimes we need to go and mingle with each other and get our embers kicked in the fire that is starting to fade a little bit. And these events like SciCon, which is coming up on October 26th, 29th in Las Vegas, if you can, go. I'm not kidding. You will come out you'll have a different view of your place in the community. And there are some really awesome conferences coming up in the fall. Well, there's one coming up in Germany. It's, if you speak German, I guess that'd be when you go to in June. There's also QED happening in Manchester, England. There's the Australian Skeptics Conference happening in Melbourne this year. And there's a New Zealand conference for skeptics. If you're anywhere near those things, go. If you've always wanted to go to Australia, use it as an excuse and go. If you can't go, then maybe help pay somebody's way who would like to go. These are just life-changing events to get to these kind of conferences. So I can't downplay them enough. It's one thing to watch us on these videos. It's another thing to sit down and have a meal, share a drink, you know, high five somebody. It's ask them questions, sit down at a table with them. Totally different experience. So that is going to conclude my presentation for you today. I hope you guys found something of interest. And from what I understand, there's a few people talking.
We have a few questions.
All right. So
thank you so much. That's amazing. Before I go into the questions, I wanted to add something about facilitated communication. There was a school district in the western suburbs sometime in the past 5 years, I don't remember, where parents sued the school to force them to pay for facilitated communication. Yep. And the court sided with science.
Sometimes it works, but yes. You know what? They've got to have some really good information out there to be able to pull on, because I know exactly what case you're talking about, because I'm really active in this group and following what's going on over there. It's a very small group, but it is a group of passionate people who know their stuff about facilitated communication. My gosh, you guys, if you don't know what this is, it is just, it's awful. And more than that is that the science community came about like 30 years ago and said, this is nonsense. This is Ouija board stuff. This is the clever Hans theory. This is just silly. And we debunked it. We thought, well, not me, I wasn't around 30 years ago in this community, and they did it and they walked away. And what happened is it went underground, it changed its names, and it's still vibrant and still happening. And that's what happens in our communities. We drop the ball because we think we're so smart and so smug. We walk away, we go, well, we know how this
or we go to something else that's really grabbing our attention at the moment. Like, why keep chipping away at facilitated communication when it's not in your face? But anyway, we have quite a few questions here. So one of them is, how often are your edits challenged?
Oh, that's a question I'm asked a lot. How do we keep these things on the pages? Almost never, because I get that all the time. And people think that, you know, somebody can come in and change Wikipedia. It's really easy to change a Wikipedia page and do that, but then it's changed back in seconds, usually. We have very little problem with vandalism. There are bots, computer bots on Wikipedia that handle most of the vandalism, and you don't even notice it. It's there and gone in seconds. If people try to vandalize it, people can't really challenge the work we do, because what my team is trained to do is to do it thoroughly. We don't usually make a little change here, a little change there. I mean, we do that, but we put in huge rewrites. We say top to bottom, we're rewriting the page here, and we put it out on Wikipedia. And it's hard to deal with something that's completely rewritten because it's all intergrained with each other. So we have very, very little pushback. Sometimes we get pushback and it's just from other editors who maybe are more experienced, that think maybe we're too hard on whatever the topic is, or maybe we didn't do this quite right. But that's just the way Wikipedia works, and that's fine. And we get a little pushback from them, but it's not like they're changing the page entirely. No, almost never.
Good, good. Okay, next one. This is actually the first question that was entered today. You gave a great example with "I'm seeing a child," which the sitter then infers to be something related to themselves.
Whatever's personal.
Can you give a few other examples like that?
Okay, so let me think a second. Here's one I've just recently seen again. I'm seeing a rose. It could be, and then they pause a little bit to have, because what happens is the sitter is motivated to make sure this reading happens. So they will jump in. Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium, is notorious for this. He pauses and he'll say something like, I'm getting a rose. And there's this awkward pause that the sitter wants to jump in and fill it in. And they're like, that's my Aunt Rose. Or think about how many ways you can use just a phrase like that.
Sure, my mother had a rose garden. Yeah.
It could be a flower. It could be I've got flowers behind me, no roses, but I mean, it could be a tattoo. It could be somebody had them in their garden. It could be they watched The Bachelorette together and there was a rose. I mean, there's so many ways of interpreting a thing like a rose. And then also we don't play, we don't realize how common things are, but we feel that they're very specific to us. I just put up a video with Tyler Henry talking about a piano. She was sitting on a piano seat, and he was referring to a woman who had died. She was probably born in 1910, 1920. And of course the person's like, oh, that was my grandmother. Yes. And you think about it, yeah, it does sound specific, but really, how many places would a woman have? How many chances would somebody, living or dead, because he didn't say exactly. How many chances would you have in your life to sit on a piano seat? It's not even a piano.
And none of these people ever say, well, why are you asking me? You're the psychic.
Well, yeah, well, but see, they don't want to challenge the psychic, because if they challenge the psychic, if there's any negativity of any kind, the psychic will move to another person. Your person just disappeared, but the person behind you wants,
Gotcha.
So they're trying to hang on. So they'll do reasoned, motivated listening to try to keep, oh no, that must be mine. Oh no, that's mine. They're trying really hard. And that's another thing skeptics don't realize, is that the links that the sitter is going to, the work they're doing to try to hang on to that no, that's me. No, don't look at that. That's me. And I'm willing to
pass that mic on.
graceful with a little helping to do it. Anyway, I've got lots of examples up on my YouTube channel. I enjoy listening to it and then really listening to what they're saying. And then the sitter is hearing this. The psychic's throwing out this vague thing, but nobody catches it because you're not really listening as carefully. And when you have a video or you can see it transcribed, oh my gosh, it's so glaringly obvious.
Okay, next, Rob Palmer says you have a weekly Zoom trivia game.
Oh my gosh, Rob. Yeah. So during the pandemic, I forgot about that. Well, there's so much we've been doing. I just had to kind of pick something. So Rob is right. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we were really frightened. I mean, all the community people were scared. And my local skeptics group used to go to in pub trivia where you go have a hamburger and cheeseburger and, you know, have a drink and you have pub trivia. So that all canceled during the pandemic, but I really missed that social aspect. So what I did is I just said, I'll throw together a trivia on Zoom. I don't know much about Zoom, but I could figure it out. Now I'm really good at it. But so every Thursday night, we have not missed a Thursday night. I think we're at 152 games.
Wow.
And we record them. You can find them on my personal YouTube place. I'm sure Rob's putting the link up somewhere. But it's social trivia. So it's fun as heck. And we have about 40 people who come and go, but usually on every Thursday night, we have about 30 people that show up, and we've formed a community. We're getting to know each other in real life. 17, I think, 15 people, I think, attended PsyCon. Some people for the very first time this last year. And it was, oh my gosh, the subjects we've covered. Anyway, you can find the link on Facebook, or you can email or whatever, me or Rob Palmer. He did a whole category last week. It was a blast. He did all sorts of stuff. He did psychics because he knows how much I love that. And he did conspiracy theories, and we've done logical fallacies, and we've done trees and metals and presidents. Oh, we've covered everything. It's a lot of fun. It's a socializing aspect. And anybody watching, if you guys want to come hang out with us, it's fun. But it goes on for about 4 hours, and it's at 6 o'clock my time it starts. So that's late for you East Coasters, but we have people.
It's 9 o'clock here. Yeah.
Mhm.
I personally could not do 4 hours starting at 9 o'clock, but there are many people who could. Okay.
Yeah, and people come and they stay half the game and then they leave.
Sure. Okay. We have another question here. This one is a little longer, but it's a very good one. Over and over, I hear from friends and family that psychics, mediums, or sensitive people know facts that they, quote, could not possibly have known from the internet. What is the best way to explain this to people?
Well, first off, I would be very sympathetic to them and say, you know, it does seem like it is real, because it does seem like it's real to these people. It is real. They're not into it as I am. I've been doing this for several years, and oh my gosh, it's just like ingrained in me now. But I'm always seeing new things. What I would suggest to them is it does not have to be hot reading, which is finding something on the internet. In fact, that's very common that most psychics do not find anything on you on the internet.
Mhm.
Absolutely don't. It is only a very small subset of the psychic mediums that are finding something on the internet. Most are doing something called cold reading. And that's just general statements. They're looking at your body language. They look at the room around me. You can even look around me and make judgments about me. You can hear my voice. You can hear my accent. You make decisions about, you know, my grandfather's probably not alive because I'm 60 years old and I look 60 years old. So it's unlikely to have a grandfather figure in my life. It's also possible I don't have my parents either. So these are statements that are just general sounding. Though, if you're talking about a psychic that you've had readings with, once you've had a reading with them, anything after that, the second reading, the third reading, that's hot reading. They already have some information about you. Also, record all your record them. Transcribe them's even better. If you have them, you want to send them to me, and you don't want me to, you want me to look at it, but not, I won't publish it. That's fine. I'll evaluate it. But people do motivated listening. They hear things they want to hear. They give feedback, even if you don't, even if you're trying not to give feedback, you're giving feedback. You smile, you lean back, you lean forward, you cross your arms, you nod your head, you're doing it. And I would have a lot of sympathy when people say that there's no way they could have known. God, there's so many ways they could know. But yes, it's a trick. It's don't ridicule them. To the person asking the question, don't ridicule them. Say, you know, it does seem like it's a big deal. You know, it's all over the internet, and nobody wants to be told they're stupid. Nobody wants to be told, you idiot. The best way to handle this and all of these things is, you know, I don't really have a good answer, but I'd like to find out, because it does. Why are all these TV shows on? I'd like to figure it out. Let's figure it out together. How about, you know, with whatever relationship you're having with that person, say, I found out this one thing. What do you think of it? You have to allow them to save face.
Yes.
They have to help figure it out or think they're helping figure it out, even if you steer them that direction.
Mhm.
Because if you just hand them an article and say, here's the answer, they're not going to go, oh, thank you for proving I was stupid.
No, I've never had that happen.
So you have to find a way of having a conversation with them that allows them to figure it out, or to be able to say to themselves, hey, I used to believe this and now I figured it out.
Yeah.
So it's a conversation.
Yeah,
There's
and that's
no
exactly
answer.
what
It takes
that's
time.
exactly what James Randi used to say. You know, first of all, be kind.
Be kind and understand that it could be you, and it may
Yeah.
very well be you someday, and it may have been you in the past. So treat them the way you wish you had been treated.
Mhm. Okay, this one's from Scott Snell, who is our friend down in National Capital Area Skeptics.
I know, Scott.
Hi, Scott. Yeah. And I don't want
out there
anybody here to
again.
think, I don't have to know you to read your question, but I do like to acknowledge Scott because we pass our meetings back and forth, and sometimes our speakers. So Scott asked, are you seeing any anti-skeptics organizing Wikipedia editors like you've done?
This is a freaking ridiculous project that I have. Trying to rewrite Wikipedia in all languages possible concerning science, scientific skepticism, and claims of the paranormal is nuts. Nobody in their right mind would do this. So I'm trying to find people out there who are like me, a little bit out there. And sometimes I run into people who will, and we've got at least 100 of them, that will say, this is just ridiculous. You've got to be kidding. When do I sign up? So they're out there, and you know, you got to get started somewhere. I had this conversation with Barry Carr, who runs SciCon, and there's a lot of people who are in the community that we kind of call them doers, you know, that do stuff, and we get a little frustrated because it just feels like it never ends, right? You just never can finally settle this problem. You can never put the final nail in the coffin of whatever pseudoscience we're talking about. It morphs back. And thankfully, most of the doers that are in communication with each other aren't having that moment of like, oh my gosh, this is just ridiculous. Why am I doing this? I have a garden out there that I can spend all my time. I have cats. I have things I can do. I have other things I enjoy. There's books I haven't touched. You know, why am I doing this? I'm not being paid for it, you know, necessarily. There's no money in this. And this crisis doesn't hit us all at the same day, thankfully. So we reach out to somebody else, and they say, and I remember saying to Barry Carr, Barry, this is just, we're never going to get anywhere. We can't do this. This is just, oh my gosh, it's another thing. And he says, Susan, imagine the world we would be living in if we hadn't tried.
Yeah.
Imagine where we would be today if we hadn't at least established the foundations where people can find this. And he's right, you know.
Yeah.
We'll never convince people. We'll never get them all, and and there'll always be cons. People are always looking for a way to get one over on their fellow person. You know, come on.
Yeah, it's very much Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. On Wikipedia, do you run into why can't I say that word? Reputation repair companies hired to eliminate anything negative?
Yeah, we sure have. Winchester Mystery House over here in San Jose. They one of my editors rewrote the Wikipedia page, did a beautiful job. It's an incredible page, based a lot on the work done by Brian Dunning from Skeptoid Podcast and others who had written about the Winchester Mystery House. Completely rewrote it, got rid of a lot of the paranormal aspects because it's a lot of history there. Reclaimed the founder of it, her reputation, and then we started seeing some changes to the page, and turns out that it was a person who's running the house, or like tour company or something like that, and they were trying to get it back to some more paranormal stuff and trying
Oh, because it sells.
yeah. And oh yeah, there's a lot of money in the paranormal. And so we had to really buckle down. And it wasn't just a GSOW team. It was probably like one or two of us, but mostly Wikipedia editors in general. As I said, they do the majority of the work. And they don't identify as being skeptics, but they are. And we had to explain to this tour person that it's not going to work like that. You can waste your day trying to put these changes up here, but these are not valid changes for a Wikipedia page. Put them on your website.
Yeah.
Don't bring them to Wikipedia. So we get that. Another thing, and I'll caution anybody out there who has a Wikipedia page right now or who wants a Wikipedia page, there's a whole scam out there that we didn't know about where you could pay somebody to change your page. You know, it's like $20 and they'll add this little bit. So there's all kinds of stuff going on like that. But what happens is the moment that these people find out that you care about this page enough to put money into it, your own personal page or create a page for you, then what happens is you'll be blackmailed because they'll come in and they'll make the change. You pay them their $20. And then a day or two later, another editor will come in and put your page up for deletion.
Yeah.
And then the first editor will come in, or they'll contact the first editor again. They'll say, what's going on? He goes, oh, I can fix all of this. I can take care of it for you. $600, right? and it becomes, and it's escalates.
Yeah, it never ends.
It never ends. And so it's a blackmail kind of thing. And we've been contacted by a few people, and one guy was in tears. He's just like, my reputation is being harmed. I can't allow this, you know, and it was just awful. And that's what it is. It's, again, there's scams all over.
Yeah.
And so if you don't talk about it, this kind of stuff happening, and I'm glad somebody asked this question, then you don't know. And I bet you there's at least one person in your audience going, oh, I didn't realize that. I was going to reach out to a company to fix my Wikipedia page or whatever. And it's never a good idea.
Okay. This one's from Rob Palmer. Oh, I just hit the scroll button and it disappeared, but I think I remember.
Here, let me channel him.
No. I just
let me think about what he might.
Okay, I got it. What do you think about the gender imbalance in skepticism?
I'm in charge of my organization, and
yes, you are. I notice at meetings we tend to have far more males than females, so I don't think I think he was more talking in a general sense.
Well, in a general sense, I've been
around. You're very good. You're the answer. I mean, you set up.
And who runs CFI? Robin Blumner, who's a woman.
Oh,
and
cool.
Who's running, and
cool.
Most of the groups are the person in charge of the European skeptics is a woman.
Yeah.
Claire Klingenberger.
Very cool.
There's a lot of women in charge now, and what you got to look at it in perspective. You get somebody who jumps into the scientific skepticism community, and they're young, under 30. Everything feels like we need to change it today. Oh my gosh, look at the injustices, or look at this, look at that. And then they're not looking at the history, because the history started the day they joined. So
right.
From the perspective of my perspective, I'm a social historian by education. So I've really spent a lot of time looking into the history of the scientific skepticism movement. And it was all men, just all men. And when I started coming to the community back in 2000 or so, started attending things, it was all men, all white men, old white men. Now, I like old white men. I like lots of people. I like all kinds of people. So I don't have anything against them. But you have to remember that getting to a certain point in the community, you have to attend conferences and things, you have to have so much money to attend. You have to have vacation time. You can't have young children. You can't, it's a certain demographic that's going to be able to afford the time and the money and the inclination, scientific mindset to go into these conferences. So it's going to be all men, but it's that's what it is right now. So when I first started out in the 2000s, it was mostly all men that were attending, and the speakers were mostly men. Over time, we've changed a lot, and the communities have tried their hardest to make it more equal, as well as conference speakers, and not just women, but more diversity in people of color, more like if you go to the Australian skeptics or the New Zealand skeptics, they're much more inclusive of trying to find people from those cultures that are indigenous of their area. It's a huge effort, but let me tell you, there are not a lot of people out there who are not white older males. There's a lot of them, and there's not a lot of the others. It's a lot more, and they're trying, but my gosh, certain hobbies like the UFO community, that's men. It's all men. It is all men. If you look at chemtrails, UFOs, 9/11 conspiracies, moon hoax conspiracy, it's a man thing, and they gravitate to it. I don't know why.
Well, what about flat Earth? Flat Earth, is that mostly men?
Oh, yeah, a bunch of men. Yeah. So you can't ask a person who's not a white man to say, I need this to become your passion and learn everything you possibly can about it and make it your thing. I mean, there's a lot of room for it. Same with Bigfoot. Bigfoot's all men. There's very few women in it. Women are more into something different. Women are the victims of psychics, but they're still not speaking out on it. Women tend to get into more of the medical stuff. I've noticed there's more and more women that are into the psychiatry aspect, or the anti-vaccines, the medical aspect. I don't know why. Maybe
alternative medicine.
Yeah, that seems to be more where they're aimed at.
Okay. We still have more questions if you have more time.
Yeah, I'm fine.
If someone has limited time and wants to do one good thing to help skepticism, what do you recommend?
Great question.
Yeah.
I would probably say get informed on one topic, pick something that you find interesting and learn a lot about it. Or I would, and then maybe in time that will be something they can inform somebody else on, or they can learn enough to be able to talk about it, because they don't have time right now. Doesn't mean they're not going to have time later. Or I would say promote something, either micropayments to a small group or a small podcast would help a lot. Write reviews about your podcast that you really enjoy. Subscribe to things. Read a book and write a good review about it on places like Amazon, where it will be seen, and attend a conference, or if you can't attend a conference, sponsor somebody who can attend the conference. All those things are huge. And then you could look at that book that I put up, 105 Things, because it's got all kinds of levels of what I can do. But let me tell you, small things are important.
Yeah.
It really is. And we need that. Just because you can't be all in 24/7 like I am doesn't mean that you can't make a difference, because it takes a lot of you, but to make a difference. But we need it. Get started. Just pick something.
Good point. Okay. Did your team have to spend a lot of time defending the Wikipedia page on children's health defense?
No. We put it up, wrote it, put it up. We translated it into French, put it up on Wikipedia, and mostly it stayed okay. Most vandalism or most edits are done by people who come by, make an edit and leave. And those are easily fixed, like I say, by robots.
Yeah.
Wikipedia fixed most of them. And most of the time we write a Wikipedia page, we usually walk away from it, because we've got another page to work on, and we just can't sit there and protect it. And what happens is Wikipedia editors in general that are not a part of my project will just fix it. They'll take care of most of it. So no, it's really, vandalism is overrated. Yeah, vandalism, there's a lot of it, but we really don't have that kind of problem. It's like say it's a very common question I get, and it's really not the thing. So no, yes, John F. Kennedy Jr. and his friends are upset, and they may have approached Wikipedia. Maybe they've even talked to people they think are in charge, but no, it's pretty much the same as what we wrote it in 2019.
Excellent. Excellent. Other than your own, do you recommend any podcasts or YouTube channels?
Great. It just depends on what you're into. Mine's only been around like what, 9 days? And that's for people who really want to know about psychics. And I don't know if you're into it. I think I've got a great channel going. And you can help me steer it to where it should be. But there's so many good ones out there. It's I mean, if you're into, find something that you're into and go with it. I really think we should pick more places that are kind of budding, starting out, like there's some really popular ones that everybody listens to, podcasts as well as YouTube channels, and that's great. But find some of the younger, newer ones that are starting out that really could use your help and patronage and shares. So I don't want to name specifically too many, because then I'm going to forget somebody and somebody's going to have their feelings hurt. But I think it's a really good idea just to find the niche that you are interested in, and smaller ones, you have a little more chance of steering them into helping, advising them, and helping them out, maybe with even $5 a month. And I think that's probably a good way of doing it. We really need more channels that are non-English speaking. So if you do not speak, if you speak languages other than English and you're comfortable with that, reading or writing or listening to, please support podcasts and channels that are non-english, because they are really struggling to make an effort.
But they
and
are.
It's such a problem. There's so many in English. There's just zillions. If you can, really patronize those ones that are non-English speaking ones.
Sure. Okay. All right. This one's from Eric Krieg.
Hi, Eric.
Of the wide range of nonsense we tried to address, what areas do you see as having rapid growth lately? Is there anything rearing up?
And the pseudosciences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's all relative. Those ones we push down, those James Randi used to talk about, the ducks, the rubber ducks. You push them down, you think they're gone, and then they pop up again.
Yes.
I think that's a great question. I guess just misinformation in general, a distrust of authority.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking they know more than others because because they think they have the answer. They know how to use Google. Those old people don't know anything.
Google University.
Yeah, Google University, Dr. Google.
Yeah.
There is so much. What is hot and new and coming up? Well, I mean, the anti-vaccines was just nuts, as you all know. And we made fun of those flat earthers and the hollow earthers and the crystals and all that stuff. But really, that's what happened, is that magical thinking that these people had. The reason they got themselves into these rabbit holes of believing into this nonsense, they also started drifting into the anti-vaccine and the anti-expert and so on. So
there just isn't one, is there?
Well, I'm thinking, oh, it's this. And I say, no, there's this. And then I think, I'm not sure how to answer that question, because there seems like there's so many. I mean, the psychics just went boom when the pandemic hit, because they went to Zoom and anybody could put up a Facebook page.
Yes.
No money in it.
Or
I mean, there was tons of money in it, but there's no money to invest in it. Anybody could call themselves a tarot reader or whatever. I think that if we're going to invest our time in something, maybe places like TikTok, I'm sure that's going to continue to exist. TikTok's a really great place to go. Richard Saunders and Barry Carr and I were talking about this once, and they said you have to, every generation has, whatever the new medium is, you need to get the critical thinking on that medium and do it as if it's never existed before. And it's just, you know, Twitter, and Slack, and everywhere has to have this done. It's just, we just need armies of people in the skeptic community. And now somebody's going to come and chop out that little bit I said and say, she's advocating for violence and armies. And
Oh,
we need
well,
armies of
it
people.
sounds like your answer is there isn't just one, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what I expected on that one.
I think it's just a
everywhere.
general mistrust of authority. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
I think that's probably where we're at.
Which isn't new.
No,
Which isn't new.
it's just
So-
now it feels like it's everywhere because we have social media.
Yeah, yes. It feels like it's everywhere because it is.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm going to wrap this up. Susan, thank you so much. You are a major player in the skeptical world, and we are lucky to have you. I did not realize how truly evil the grief vampires are. I
Oh, it's
did
bad.
not realize
I'm
that.
just a herder of other people. I'm just a facilitator of the community. If I can be the person who's steering people to do better and more, that's fine, but I'm not the person who's doing all the work. It's a
Yeah.
collective.
Yes, somebody in the chat put Susan is a rock star, and it popped up. I'm not
Aw.
monitoring the chat
you.
right now, but
I'm only a rock
Yeah.
star because I surround myself with amazing people.
well, and they want to work with you. So there you go, back at you.
Contact me.
So, so thank you very much. And for everybody else, currently, we do not have a meeting scheduled for April. Excuse me. If that changes, we will get a meetup invitation out and we'll get the information out. What we do have is an excursion. We've for quite a few years have been doing an outdoor excursion in May. And last year we had one scheduled for Valley Forge and it rained. So we canceled it. And we will do that one again this May. I lost my notes here. May 20th. It's a Saturday. It's the third Saturday. So I will get information about that out. And I see Eric popped up. Did you want to say anything, Eric?
Yeah, we should be on for May 20th at Valley Forge, parking by the Visitor Center. We'll have more information on our webpage and email.
Yes, yes, yes. I will get that out soon, which is a very vague term that doesn't nail me down to anything. So thank you for those of you who came. Thank you for the questions and the comments. They were really helpful. And Susan, thank you. I'm trying to get rid of this Q&A. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
guys for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Okay.
so much for speaking to us and for all you do in the world, trying to hold a line for reason.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
yes. Thank you. All righty. I'm going to click on leave so